Ramesses the builder. So he's a crown prince at 14. His father says, right, go off and finish those projects I've started. So he's at Karnak and he's finishing off the hypostyle hall, which was originally started by Amenhotep III. Well, most of those papyrus columns he probably organised himself. So what he did was he decorated the inside and outside walls, so the inside pylon and the outside walls, in the images of Seti I, showing all the great battles of his father. But on the papyrus columns, he put his own image and his devotion to Amun-Ra. So that's quite interesting. He completed the temple on the West Bank, the Mortuary Temple, for his father, and that we could see in the video of Seti I, was an amazing complex. It was a huge, bigger than most deity temples in Egypt. If you go to Todd or Mant, those are the temples to the war god Montu. Those temples are smaller than the Mortuary Temple of Seti I. He built the temple of Osiris that Seti I had set there. So Seti I started it off. Ramesses completed the project. While he was there, there was a small chapel to his grandfather, Ramesses I, and he enlarged it into a larger temple dedicated to Ramesses I himself and Osiris. And he's doing all this from the age of 14. Pretty amazing. Ramesses II became king. The first thing that he needed to do was to send a caravan of goods off to Dela Medina, the workers' village, the tomb builders' village, the miners, the artisans, the overseers who were going to build his tomb. They built the tomb in, of course, the Valley of the Kings, KV7. Now he is on the throne for 66 years. Wow. That's why it's a really big tomb. And they just kept enlarging and enlarging this tomb. Let's look at the tomb plan. Well, it looks like a mini city underground, doesn't it? It looks as big as a cult temple cut out of the earth. Amazing. Fortunately, they chose the lower part of the valley to cut this tomb, and it always suffered with water damage from the flash floods that happen every 3 to 5 years. So even if Ramesses had been secured in this tomb, there was a real problem of stormwater rushing into the tomb and destroying everything that he had there. Now think of all the objects that Tutankhamun had in his tiny tomb, which represents probably one room of Ramesses II's. What are the goods that are stored in there? Anyway, that tomb was partially robbed, and then later on during the next intermediate period, the third intermediate period, the priests removed the body of Ramesses II from his tomb and reburied it in the cache at El Bakri. Now, when the cache was rediscovered and they moved all the bodies up to Cairo, in the 1970s, the French got involved and they offered to examine the mummified body of Ramesses II and do some serious conservation work on his body. So his body was shipped over to France. They did the examination, they did all the conservation, and they found that originally he had red hair. So he was a red hair guy. That he was suffering with arthritis, that he had problems with circulation, and he had several abscesses in his mouth, which may have led to his death. So It just shows how lucky we are with modern medicine. Even with this COVID-19 business going on, at least we have a good start to live a life up to 50, 60, 80 years of age. The Mortuary Temple of Ramesses II is located on the West Bank. Today it's known as the Ramesseum. And as you can imagine, it was a big complex. Note the arches, okay? The Greeks are supposed to have invented the arch. Well, forget it. The Egyptians were the ones who invented the arches. They'd worked out that that shape could achieve a span across two points. Unfortunately, the Ramesseum has suffered with ancient and modern earthquakes, and it has been used as sort of a deposit of stone to be quarried away for other projects. But in its day, when it was completed, it must have been amazing. And of course, it had various collectors going around it, like Belzoni removing the bust of Ramesses to the British Museum, and various other plundering that went on in the 19th century. So what is there to see in the Ramesseum? Well, the Theban triad. There is Ramesses as portrayed with the so-called tree of life, the Persia tree. There are beautiful columns to go and see in this temple. And remember what the temple was used for. It was there supposedly to feed his spirit. So he would leave his tomb in the Valley of the Kings, cross the mountain and dwell in this mortuary temple during the hours of daytime, being rejuvenated with offerings, and hopefully pilgrims would go there and worship him and ask favours of his spirit. Then his spirit would make the journey back to the tomb, and then hopefully through the duet be with the gods at night and repeat the whole process the following day. Now, on the west bank of Thebes, all the mortuary temples, or the west bank of Waset, or let's call it the west bank of Luxor, that's modern day term for that place in Upper Egypt. All the mortuary temples are in a row. And in the 18th dynasty, the going forth by day spell was created. So I like to think that what they were trying to achieve was like a row of mortuary temples which they could go and visit each other during the day. So recreating living life in the spirit life. That's what I think they were up to, which is why, because they're not dotted around all over the place, they're all in a row. The 18th dynasty, and then you've got the 19th dynasty.